What if we created a world where we use our own data to augment our thinking, extend our memory, to automate our chores, and to track and improve things that are important in our lives? This is a vision of what a utopian future of responsible data usage looks like from the perspective of Michael Jelly, my guest today. This vision is in stark contrast to the way the world works today, where data about us is predominantly used to manipulate our behavior for the benefit of third parties. This utopia is the premise on which Michael's company Magicflow is centered on. And so Magicflow is a productivity tracker that helps you focus, get into deep flow work sessions, and identify the things that are obstructing your flow. So today, Magicflow is a productivity app, but Michael has a much broader vision of how data can be used to enable us to live healthier, more productive, and fulfilling lives. Michael was kind enough to offer listeners of this podcast 50% off for the first 3 months by using the promo code REINVENT. So go check it out, Magicflow at magicflow.com. Now, apart from being a brilliant founder, Michael is an incredibly curious and deep thinker, which is why this conversation naturally ran on to be close to 2 hours long. It's the longest podcast I've done, but you'll soon understand why it turned out to be that way. We cover a wide range of topics ranging from the meaning of life, the potential and dangers of AI, what the world would look like if we no longer needed to work, finding the right balance between being heads down and exploring new potential directions, product market fit, and so much more. There's timestamps you can use to skip through whatever parts of the conversation are most interesting and relevant to you. And all of the resources mentioned in the conversation are in the show notes. So you're listening to the Inventing the Future podcast with your host, Julian. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Mindflow, which is a personal growth-focused social app. If you're a growth-driven person, check out Mindflow on the App Store to embark on growth journeys that are meaningful to you and grow alongside your friends. So with that, let's go ahead and dive into the conversation with Michael. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the podcast. I have an awesome guest with me here today, Mr. Mike Jelly. Welcome to the show, man. How you doing?
Thanks. Doing really well, Julian. Great to sit with you.
Cool. Yes. So, super fun to talk. We're here in the effing studio. You're a fellow builder here. You're visiting for some time. You're originally from London, so great to have you in this physical space. We've gone on some hikes, had some cool, weird, interesting conversations. So I'm excited to see where the flow and the magic of this conversation can take us. Sorry, I just had to do that.
Yeah.
But I think starting off, before we were chatting, you mentioned something very interesting of like, there's all these different paths you could have gone through in life, right? Mm-hmm. You ended up picking, I guess, at least for now, the startup founder path. But how do you think about all the potential paths you could have taken, especially someone like you that's so curious and passionate about so many things? Talk to me a little about how you even decided on this path and also the opportunity cost that exists within that to the point where you decided to become a founder.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the founder life is not always easy. It's a pretty challenging road, so it's not for everyone. But yeah, there are so many different awesome careers, life paths, passions that you can follow in life, and you do just have such limited time. Yeah. So you can't both be a world-changing, hard-charging entrepreneur and also a rock star and an actor and writer and all of the different game designer, all the different amazing things that you could do in life. And I guess I just had to assess at sort of 17, 18, what do I actually want to do in life? What would be something that I would look back on when I was 40 or 50 and think, okay, I'm really, really damn happy that I did that. Yeah. Am I allowed to say swear words?
Oh yeah.
Okay,
Fuck cool. It, go for it.
Fuck it, let's do it. What would I be fucking happy with if I look back on it? And I guess I wanted to make sure that I really had achieved some kind of impact that had helped many, many people to live a better life in whatever that means to them, rather than just sort of do something which even though I would really enjoy it, like, let's say designing a video game there's a lot of great video games out there already. Like there will be great video games made regardless of whether I make them or not.
Yep.
One place that I'm less like convinced that there always is in like, strange niches of like company building where it's like not everyone will share that same vision as I have on like what I think an important new piece of infrastructure for humanity would be to have built technologically. So I kind of was like, well, where is the place I can most uniquely contribute, which would kind of expand the frontier of what humanity is able to do, in a way that, I guess like designing the one of the many video games that I have in my notes app, like, of things that I think would be cool to play. Like being a founder, I think, is the way that I can most impact the future.
And why does that matter to you? I guess like in terms of, it seems like what you're optimizing for there is the potential impact you could have. And I love the heuristic too of, well, if I was to make a video game or whatever, like great video games are going to be made without me, but a great company of a niche I identify, that seems like not only more unique, but more potentially impactful. So I guess like why does that matter for you? Because there's people that I guess care more about like making a fun video game. Why does the impact that you want to carry yourself forward in what you do like guide you to such a degree?
People often ask like the question like, what is the meaning of life, in a way that
Please tell me. I've been trying to figure that one out.
Exactly. Everyone seems to say that it is completely impossible to figure out, but I have a way that I have like formulated it for myself. Like the only thing that I think matters in life is like the subjective experience of conscious beings. So if there's a planet that explodes but there's nothing on it and no one ever sees it, that doesn't matter to me. I don't think that holds any meaning. But anytime the conscious being suffers or has great pleasure, that is meaningful to me. And the way that I kind of have extrapolated this is like I find it a good thing when I feel good and happy and like my life is full of meaning and purpose and love and joy. And I find it terrible when I feel like those things are not the case. Like when I feel like tired and just exhausted and just, like someone's, like cut me off on the road, like I feel bad. So because I'm able to sense that I really prefer the good feelings to the bad feelings, I assume that applies to everyone. And so for me, the meaning of life is how do we get more people to have a better subjective experience of their life? And so I have a fairly clear sense then of what provides me meaning. It's just how do I help more people enjoy their lives? Like it kind of came to me when I was thinking about I read a like mini story in a book. It was like a chapter of a book where someone was tortured and killed, but no one ever knew about it. And I think like one of the characters had the choice whether or not to like have them like just die painlessly or go through the second like much more painful option, but it was going to benefit that person, the person making the choice, if they went through the painful thing, and no one would ever know. And it was like I just kind of I thought through like why it matters, and it was clear just from that simple thought experiment that the fact that person suffers matters simply because they suffer, not because of any like consequences to the decision maker. The person in the trolley problem trying to decide whether or not to make more or fewer people suffer. It just matters because they suffered. And so like that's where I think the meaning of life comes from. Like
and so what does a meaningful life mean to you? Like how do you articulate that? And do you feel like that's mostly like obviously very subjective, or is there some objectivity to the meaning of life that we can all latch onto?
I think the main way in which I think it is objective is when you are able to improve the feeling of being, the subjective experience of another being, like as measured by that other being, that other human, that other animal, that is objectively a better world that we now live in. And vice versa, it'll be worse if you make people feel worse. And so then for me, if I go around in my life trying to sort of spread joy and trying to help people and trying to reduce suffering and increase like positive experiences. Anytime I'm faced with decisions, whether that is what I want to do with my career, whether that is like how do I want to treat a person on the street who is, coming and asking me questions, or I will always try to treat people with respect and like add a bit of joy to people's lives when I interact with them randomly.
Interesting. Yeah. And so then how'd you go about discovering what that meaning was for you? Like, how'd you figure out, like, this is what's meaningful for me? Like, is there some sort of question you ask yourself, or framework, or a sort of an experience that highlighted this for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that story from the book of the character faced with those choices was the first step towards clarity on that. And then I think I remember sort of having partied a bit too much when I was sort of 16 or 17 years old.
Happens.
And just feeling really like under the weather, like lying on the bed face down, just in my own head, and sort of trying to ask myself like literally, what is the meaning of life? Like what would I be happy looking back on as having been a life full of meaning? And then that was kind of where I think I just read that book, and then that was where things kind of crystallized. I was like, well, the only thing which matters is how people feel. Like how happy or sad like the world is over the long run. And so, yeah, I just kind of like in my deeply hazy state, I thought to myself, yeah, I guess that makes sense. And I've never been able to like come up with any other real like definitions of the meaning of life or of what matters in the world than that.
Damn, maybe I should get like lit more often to have that those crazy deep thoughts.
That morning clarity.
Yeah, that morning hangover clarity. Yeah, that's when you realize the reality of things. That's pretty funny. Okay, and so you kind of realize this for yourself, and you started, I guess, to like question more of the meaning that was kind of showing up in your life. What direction did that start to take you in? Like, I know later on you decided to study like politics, philosophy, economics, but I guess there was a shift there in perspective. What ended up changing in your life as a result of that?
Yeah, I mean, before I woke up and had that realization, I actually was a bit of a nihilist, and I kind of thought, nothing matters, because that seemed to be like the default like logical next step from the universe is indifferent and God doesn't exist, and like a lot of other beliefs that I had then, and I sort of still have. And so from going from being pretty indifferent, and therefore like at high school, like not trying very hard at working, and not really having any major direction that I wanted to go in life. Like I was pretty good at maths for my English followers. And so I just kind of agreed with my maths teacher of like, oh yeah, I'll go do math at uni. That sounds good. Like I'm good at it. It'll be reasonably straightforward. I didn't really have any long-term life plans. I didn't have any direction I was going in. But then, at about 17, I was like, wait, school hasn't really prepared me at all for asking questions about what I want to do with my life and like what careers I want to do. I didn't feel like I had any sense of the sort of latent space of possible careers I could do, of all the jobs in the world, and like how I would go about getting a job that I really did want. And so, I had a bit of an existential crisis like around this discovery, where I was like, okay, I actually probably should care what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. And I probably should find a direction that I want to go in and like what I want to do later. So 17, did that, like sort of graduated to high school and took a gap year. I then, in the gap year, did a bit of traveling and stuff. And like you have a lot of time for those kind of 3 a.m. conversations. When you're doing that gap year, you do drink quite a lot of alcohol and you meet a lot of new people who you don't necessarily know. So you kind of get to talk with strangers about lots of interesting ideas, and everyone's in this kind of period of discovery in their life.
Yeah,
so
and a lot of different perspectives on life.
So many, because so many different countries, either that you're visiting or that people are coming from to visit the same country as you, wherever that is. So that was actually where I got really interested in philosophy and really just kind of thinking deeper about what life is, like what a good life is, what purpose means. And so I actually kind of knew, even before I started studying maths, which I studied for 3 months before I quit, even before I started, I kind of knew I wasn't going to go and finish that, because I realized that I didn't have any passion for that. And I had finally discovered something that I did have passion for, like how do we make like an individual's life good? How do we make like the world a better environment for people to live good lives in? And how do we kind of come together and like decide on the future of societies or economies to improve that world as an environment for humans and other beings? And so then that was when I was like, okay, I shouldn't be studying maths, even though maths is cool for many reasons. It wasn't like what I was most excited by. I wanted to study politics, philosophy, and economics. And so, yeah, 3 months into my maths degree, I basically quit. Rang my parents, told them, I don't think this is right for me. I don't think this is good for me. And then started the next year studying, politics, philosophy, and economics. And yeah, I think it all stemmed from that kind of moment of like, maybe I should want to do something with my life. Maybe there is meaning in life, which is like actually real and really, really worth pursuing.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. And so, it sounds like you started to get a better conception and understanding of the philosophies I guess you were having around life. I love how you had like this guiding light of like, having how can you make the world better, I guess, from your perception of like what is a good life and going in that direction. I'm actually curious to dive into that. Like, what is your conception of what a utopia looks like, right? Like, because it seems like that was the guiding light in taking you in these different directions, as well as what was formulating your philosophy that became your guiding light. So I don't know, how do you think of what this good life looks like, a sort of utopia, like what you would want the world to look like today?
Yeah, there's this great short story on the internet called Manna. It's by a guy called Marshall Brain, who founded the website like howstuffworks.com, I think. It was like one of the very early, like fairly big websites. He sold it, and I guess he must have gone through what do I want to do with the rest of my life after selling it. And he started basically writing about different visions of the future that like might come to pass. Manna is about two different visions. One of them is sort of dystopia, that the world could fall into as a result of like AI and automation taking many jobs and becoming very powerful in human society. And then the other one is basically a utopia. And I think it's the closest fictional depiction of utopia that I've ever come across. So describing that, essentially people have the freedom to do what they want to do with their life and their time. And so people spend a lot of time building things that they think are interesting, talking with, like spending time and playing and talking and sports and video games with family and friends. And it's very social, very kind of collaborative and collective kind of place. And yeah, really everyone's goal in the place, or like the kind of the end goal of it, is to give people like autonomy, the ability to pursue what they find interesting and fun, and I guess to reduce scarcity to the extent that it's possible, so that everyone kind of has the same opportunities to kind of go and pursue whatever is interesting to them in life. And yeah, I found it really interesting, and like actually from reading that, it both like alerted me to how important over the next like 20 years, this was back in maybe like 2012, AI and automation was going to be, to like how humanity thrives or doesn't thrive.
Yeah, these are like the defining moments.
Yeah. I literally think reading that short story was equally as impactful on my life as the hungover realization on the meaning of life.
Wow.
Because it gave me a direction on like, okay, what are the really important questions we're going to have to answer over the next 20 years as a society, as individuals? What is the meaning of life when we don't need to work? What is the meaning of what is our purpose when we don't need to work? And what do we do as like politically, as an economy, like when we do have robots that can do most of the things that that humans can do, and yeah, so it basically gives a vision of a post-work world. And for some people, like they don't think that a post-work world sounds good because they think that work gives them purpose and it gives them meaning in life and all these kinds of things. But I think that it's very much possible to have meaning and purpose in life without literally having a job. Yeah. Because playing sport, going and training and going out on the pitch and playing sport against other humans, like that is a very, very purposeful activity. Like for people who play it, it can be quite all-consuming, or even for people who watch it. Like watching sports, one of the most common and popular pastimes in the world. People get incredibly passionate about it. Like they fight over which team they support. So it's pretty clear that we have sources of meaning that are not work in life. And for most people in the world, those sources of meaning actually dominate work as their main sources of meaning. Yeah. So it can be family, it can be sport, it can be, writing your masterpiece, whether that's a song or a book or a piece of software or a video game. Just because AI can make art, it doesn't mean that the act of making art is no longer a valuable and meaningful act. So interesting. Yeah, I'm not actually worried about the fact that we may not need to work in the future. I think it gives us the opportunity to find meaning in other ways.
I think I love that perspective, and maybe the only pushback I would have to this is that you may initially struggle if most of the meaning you get is from work, right? Then there's like a big gap to fill. And I think you could still have a meaningful life without work. But maybe like for some people there's less of maybe it's not as meaningful. Like you can get meaning from other things like playing sports and whatnot, but it may not be as meaningful as work. And I'm thinking like for myself in some ways that like one of my greatest sources of meaning is to contribute to something beyond myself. And I feel like one of the greatest ways to do that is through work, because it's one of the ways I can have the greatest impact. So if that no longer exists, it'd be difficult, but I think I would initially be concerned and there'd be a big gap, but it would probably create a good amount of space for me to explore other things, right? Like since now there's this gap that I'm not filling, it would beg me to question like, okay, well, what other things are sources of meaning and maybe like explore, and I'd find something that gives me so much meaning that I may not even know of today. Or maybe in the future there's like new things that exist that may provide a lot more meaning. So I don't know. And actually one of the things that probably does provide the most meaning to me and many people is human connection, right?
Totally.
And that's completely like almost independent of work. So
yeah, I think that one of the things that people maybe misunderstand when we say that we won't need to work anymore is that doesn't mean that you won't be able to still dedicate yourself to things that are bigger than yourself. You can still dedicate yourself to like helping other people, because people will still need help and people will still enjoy each other's company. So you can still basically have a purpose. It's just you're not getting paid for it. I think that's really the difference. It's like when we automate a lot of jobs, what it means is that like people won't be paid for doing that thing anymore, but you can still do the thing, and you can still make it your life's work to write a masterpiece. You can still make it your life's work to spread joy and connection through podcasting and meaning. Like, so yeah, I think that the main thing is just like you will have money, or you will have the resources to live your life with joy and without scarcity. Yeah. And then you can go and do whatever you like.
And that's beautiful. I love that more actually, because I would very confidently say that even if I was a trillionaire, I would still be doing what I'm doing. And that's a privilege in its own right. But in many ways, money is a good like motivator, and the potential wealth that I could acquire. But those things, like the money you make from like work, is an extrinsic motivator. And for some people, that's the dominant motivation for work, like the extrinsic motivation that you can make. For other people, it's not. Like, yeah, I need money to sustain myself, but this work just gives me a lot of meaning, so I'm doing it. But I think the beauty is that if you take money out of the equation, then you're eliminating a very significant extrinsic motivator. And from that place, people like almost have the freedom to do whatever is most intrinsically motivating to me, which obviously is able to like trigger and channel a lot more meaning in their life than they maybe had previously.
Once the voices of extrinsic motivation die down, you actually have much more space to listen to your intrinsic motivations. Whoa. Because I don't think that you're just going to sit on the couch and just do nothing. Because I think that you might do that for a week or a month, but eventually you're going to be like, what the hell? Like, what am I doing? And like, what am I doing with my life? And then I think that's when you will go and find whatever you would be doing if you were a starving artist, except you're not a starving artist. You still make the art though. A starving artist, they don't make the art because they hope to one day make loads of money. They make the art because they can't do anything but make the art. They make the art because they love making the art. The fact that starving artists will no longer be starving because there will be resources and food and housing and stuff just provided by our robot overlords, I think will not stop them making the art. And I don't think it'll make the art less powerful or less meaningful just because they, no longer need to sacrifice, like life satisfaction for it.
Yeah. No, I mean, like the thing is that now if you're making art, it's not because you're doing it to like try to make a living and sell it, which honestly creates a lot of mental friction and stress, which is not great. Like you could be doing what you love, but if you're not making that much money, it's stressful. So now, like with no stress, with no extrinsic motivation or worry of whether it's someone's going to buy it or not, or it's good enough, you do it purely out of love and out of care and out of like just like finding meaning in that activity itself. And that's pretty beautiful. So what could possibly go wrong then?
I think that's the struggle with Utopia. You always imagine a world that is fantastic and wonderful, and there's always kind of gotchas and catchers, at least in dystopian fiction. There always is. Maybe we're very good at adapting to things going wrong and trying to fix things and making things better. So maybe we as humanity will kind of, with our AI assistants, be able to navigate it well enough that we are able to one day create Utopia. Also, maybe we have runaway AI, and humanity doesn't exist in 100 years because we're all just taken over by artificially intelligent robots. But we'll see.
Wow. Yeah, sounds fun.
Either way, like some future civilization will have a great story to tell about what we did.
Yeah, and maybe the AI will be the storyteller.
What I think is super interesting is like we as humanity have created religions and where we really are, we look at our creators with reverence and with a lot of respect, even though those creators don't like necessarily seem to be very intervening in our lives today. So we don't like see them every day. We don't like notice their impact on the world very much. But every religion has a really deeply held respect for their creators. I'm hopeful that AI has the same deeply held respect for us. Hopefully, by reading everything on the internet, the AI will be able to recognize, that your creator, whoever that may be, you owe some debt of gratitude to them for even existing. So as long as we make sure that AIs don't suffer, hopefully they will feel quite a bit of gratitude to us as having kind of created them and given them rise.
Whoa, I had never considered that, right?
We're the gods of AI.
With the gods of AI. Oh my God. Yeah, wow. That's a cool perspective. The obvious difference is that if there was to be a God that created us, like one, we don't really know the awareness of it, and we can't really do anything to him. Like if we're upset at God, like can't really like go and like kill him or something.
That's true.
AI can't do that, we just gotta be careful.
We're a bit more vulnerable than God is. To our future children.
We just gotta make sure we don't piss AI off. So watch out. Wow. Cool though. Yeah, gods of AI. That's pretty cool. Good job, humans. We're doing something. That's great. One thing kind of like tangential, but maybe related to this that I'm curious about, Mike, is you've mentioned like Tim Urban's Wait But Why blog was very, very influential and impactful in your life. I'm curious if maybe there's one or two specific pieces from there that had a shifting perspective, or overall like what you would describe of the impact of Tim's work.
I think like one which anyone interested in inventing the future, understanding the future, should definitely read is Tim's post on superintelligence. I read that and it absolutely blew my mind, like just to kind of really get a sense of where we might be on the sort of intelligence scale of the universe. Like, at the moment, we are the most intelligent thing that we're aware of. Humans, like there aren't other beings, there aren't aliens, we haven't yet made super intelligent AI. So at the moment, we are at the top of the totem pole of like the curve of intelligence in the universe. Yeah. Now, we have no idea if there is an upper limit to that curve. And if there is an upper limit to that curve, even where on it we are. Like when we do create AI, and if it gets like one step above us on the curve, like, it might just be like slightly smarter than Einstein or something. But when it starts getting 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 20, 100 steps above us on the curve, what do we look like to AI? Do we look like ants? Do we look like chickens? Like, do we look like bacteria? And if so, like, what would that AI actually think about us, consider about us? Like, it's pretty hard to know, because even though I was saying that we would be the gods of AI, AI also might just take an evolutionary view and say that we are the we are to AI what the Neanderthal was to humans, or what the sort of our common ancestor with the ape is to humans. And so actually humans haven't really given those beings as much respect as we've given gods in our history. So that's a bit of a worry. But yeah, I forgot the question. What was the question?
Yeah, it's like the impact of Tim's block. So you mentioned
gotcha.
super
intelligence.
super intelligence.
Yeah,
so.
if you look up wait, but why super intelligence, you'll be able to read that. That was really fascinating. It also just talks about like what intelligence is and a bunch of things like that. There's a post that I wouldn't say it was as useful or as that one about the Fermi paradox, which is basically if there are all of these stars and planets and galaxies out there, why haven't we seen aliens? Like what are the possible explanations for why we haven't seen aliens? And I think that the most interesting part about that post is not just the posing of the question, but actually like how would you go about answering why we haven't seen aliens? Basically, there are these different steps called great filters that you can imagine some like species going through from being like not even the species yet, like being a single-celled. Well, I guess that life goes through before it becomes a sort of intelligent spacefaring civilization that you might be able to see from a different galaxy. You've got single-celled life, you've got life at all. That's a big step, going from inert matter, or not necessarily inert, but to living, self-replicating matter. Then you've got single-celled organisms where like the kind of living matter has actually clumped into a thing, which is a cell, which is going to try and do things. Then you've got multicellular organisms, and you have each of these things kind of stacking up on top of each other. And we don't know which part of that process to get from inert matter to where we are now as humans was hard. Was it like super rare and unlikely that we went from single-celled to multicellular organisms? I don't know. Like we don't know yet because we haven't seen any other example in the universe of that happening. Was it super hard to go from multicellular organisms to like land-faring mammals? Was it hard to actually develop like technology and tool use? Was it hard to like build a global civilization that doesn't seem to only be focused on killing each other? Like there is
There's
a bit of
like
that
no
still,
relative
but
examples.
we don't have any examples. So if we were to create like 100 different identical conditions to Earth with a bit of like randomness thrown in, and we would simulate them all, like would we see all of 100 of them getting to where we are now? Or would actually only 2 or 3 manage to pass all the steps in all these great filters between then and now? And the reason why that's kind of interesting is because we don't see any civilizations like ourselves in the universe at the moment. So the question is that because civilizations get to our stage and then they destroy themselves before they become multi-planetary, multi-solar system, multi-galaxy civilizations? If so, that means that we're at a very important stage in humanity's and like life on Earth's evolution. If it's because of the gap between single and multicellular organisms, then we're actually kind of scot-free. We're out in the clear here because we've gotten past the hard step. But the universe is going to be very lonely because there aren't going to be any other aliens who have gotten past that step. So it's a super interesting way of kind of trying to figure out like how important is the current stage of civilization that we are in. Like, are we at some turning point? There's a guy called Holden Karnofsky who talks about this century being the most important century for this exact reason, that we are at the point where we now have the ability to destroy the planet with nukes and with other, like many other kinds of weapons, bioweapons, etc. But we also are at the point where we almost are multiplanetary. And then once we're multiplanetary, like it might be an even shorter time to be like, triplanetary, like, be on 3 different planets. And then we might be able to like send ships to Alpha Centauri. Like we don't know how fast that might go, but it's not impossible that, especially with like advancing AI and manufacturing techniques and better semiconductors and everything, that we actually can send a ship that's on its way to Alpha Centauri by the end of the century. Like that's possible. It's kind of crazy, but it's possible. We could become a multi-solar system species this century. Or we could end up getting into nuclear war over Ukraine and kind of regressing, not quite back to the Stone Age, but definitely to a much less good stage of civilization. Or we could just nuke the whole planet to shit. At which point, we've really fucked up, and we would be one of the many examples, perhaps, of alien civilizations that never made it past the the stage of having the power to destroy themselves, but also the power to go multi-planetary.
Yeah. So that's kind of like the importance of understanding the probability in each of the filters to see like, you know, if we had examples, we would know like what our probability of making it through this next phase is before we go to shit.
Yeah. So when you are deciding what you want to work on in life, I actually really recommend reading Holden Karnofsky's blog post or PDF basically on the fact that this is the most important century, at least according to him, because he goes through all the reasons why and all the ways that we can try to like navigate the most important century in a way that will be useful for our future descendants, for ourselves. He's a member of sort of like effective altruism, give well, and he's a long-termist. So super interesting guy. You can also apply great filters, like the thinking behind them, to startups.
Ooh.
Like what is hard about creating a startup? Like at what stages do people fail? And then what you can assess yourself on the sort of the curve of those great filters and see where you've gotten to and how many more difficult great filters lie ahead. So like, you know, even just starting and like putting up a landing page, like there are many people who've had ideas, never got to that stage. So probably like 80% of people who have said, I have an idea for an app. They never made a website. They never really kind of collected any like interest and talked like assessed interest and really got an understanding of whether it was a viable company. Like 95% of people probably never made $1. They never got any money for the business which they did. And then like, you know, how many people get to ramen profitable? How many people get to product market fit? How many people get like to, you know, each revenue milestone or company milestone, it's smaller and smaller every time. And so, yeah, you can kind of look at where the drop-off points are highest and figure out, have you passed the great filter for startups already? I think one of the most important ones is, have you charged revenue and have you charged money and made revenue with a satisfied customer? If you've done that, you're already like way, way further ahead than 95% of people who've ever tried. If you haven't done that, that's probably the first thing you should be trying to do. Like whatever your idea is, find a way to make a version of it that you can charge someone money for that they will be happy with having purchased.
Right. Yeah. Because money is like the greatest indicator of like, hey, this is valuable to me, especially if it's recurring money through a subscription.
Yeah.
That's a great analogy. The great filter, but
I didn't
for
come
startups.
up with it. It was Lyron Shapira, who is a guy who's written a bit about like different ways that early stage startups fail. But I found it super interesting, so I thought I'd share it with you guys.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's super valuable perspective. Because with that analogy, you just have to keep in mind like what are like the different phases of a startup. Very important to understand like what the journey looks like in the different phases. And then in each of those phases, what are the most common reasons people fail?
Yeah.
Right? Like it's hard because as a founder, you have to be almost as equally optimistic as you are realistic, right? Like if you're not optimistic, like you'll just be depressed by like your current
If you're not
state.
optimistic, you wouldn't have started in the first place because it's an inherently optimistic thing to do to start a company and be like, hey, maybe random woman from X city in the world, maybe I will one day make a company that, you know, is able to serve millions of people. Like that's ultimately the goal. And pretty crazy idea.
It's a beautiful idea, hard in practice. But you got to have that level of optimism to start and to persevere. But the realism, the being realistic is very important because that's how you prevent dying, right? Like sometimes like making it through is just a matter of not dying.
Yep.
And you got to see like what are the things that prevent people from going to the next filter. So very interesting. And I think there's many resources on this, but I know Paul Graham has like an essay on like the most common reasons like startups fail. So I think that's like a good starting point.
Definitely.
For that sort of thing.
Yeah. For anyone who hasn't read Paul Graham at all, like it's probably the next thing you should do. You should read at least like 2 or 3 essays like right now. Like pause and go do that because I only discovered them when I was like 22, and if I discovered them when I was 16, like I don't know, I think it would have been an equally life-changing thing to some of the other stuff I've mentioned.
Yeah, I agree with that. I was late on that party as well. So thank you, Mr. Paul Graham. Shit's next level. Okay, so I want to transition into Magicflow, but I want to do this in an interesting way. You had a tweet on Magicflow I found very interesting where you describe, very related to the previous conversation, like your view of the utopian and dystopian future. So I'll read the version here.
Yeah.
It says the utopia is a world where we use our data to augment our thinking, extend our memory, to automate our chores, to track and improve things that are important in life. That's the utopia. And the dystopia is a world where data about us is predominantly used to manipulate our behavior for the benefit of third parties, aka current like social platforms, business models. So curious, like to dive into more of like that current like utopia and dystopia and how this sort of philosophy is what drives what you're doing with Magicflow, and also how you ended there, because I know you used to be like a data tracking app, like to see what data like these companies are tracking
Facebook
about you.
knows
So,
about you, yeah.
yep. So, would be great to hear that story and a little bit more of this philosophy and how it led to Magicflow.
Yeah, sure. So my co-founder Oscar and I, back maybe 3 years ago, we were Oscar had come back from a hackathon, basically, where he had built a prototype of something which would take a photo of a person from like an advertising billboard, identify some demographics about them, and then personalize an ad to that person based on the fact that they are a 25-year-old male wearing a hoodie but with a backpack, like, you know, trying to assess whatever you can assess from that person. And we were just kind of discussing it over a beer, and it's kind of creepy, the idea that, you know, a photo of you, like, well, video of you while you're walking down the platform at, you know, in a subway or a tube station is going to then be used to personalize the ad that is right there next to you to make it the best ad possible to show you. But then we kind of were like, well, that's actually going on all the time on the internet, and, you know, in the apps you use and Facebook and whatever, they are just kind of collecting as much as they can figure out about you and then using it to target ads, to personalize a feed of content to make it maximally, like, you know, addictive and keep you coming back, keep you engaged, keep you arguing with somebody in the Facebook comments so that you read the next ad.
Super fun.
Everything. Yeah, super fun. And so then that was kind of what led us into that realization that actually, like, having a lot of very personal and valuable like data about a person gives you a lot of power over that person, because you can like ultimately a parent has lots of data on their child because they have seen that child grow up and they know about their wants and their dislikes, and a parent is pretty good at manipulating their child up to a point anyway, until maybe 13. And so it's kind of dangerous, and it's kind of weird. And the better that companies get at predicting people's behavior and predicting what they will do when you nudge them in a certain way, when you present them with a certain ad, when you show them a certain item in a feed, the more worrying it becomes that they know, like, loads and loads of stuff about us. Whereas, like, just in the same way a bad parent can be incredibly manipulative and awful to their child because of what they know about their insecurities and their desires, a great parent can be incredible because they know so much about this kid. They can help them become their best self. They can really help push them when they know they're going to struggle, but it's actually going to be really worthwhile for them to push through this difficult patch in their life. Or when to sort of say, hey, you know, you've really given that a go, but you know, it's maybe not for you. Maybe now is a good time to switch. And so that, like, conversation, and then, like, the conversations we had after that sort of led us down this path of just trying to figure out what a positive vision of collecting and using data about a person might be. Like, is it just what it is now, which is mostly being used to target ads, and, like, ultimately what is an ad but an attempt to insert something in front of you that changes your behavior, that, you know, if you want to make it sound like devious, then manipulate you.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt really quick. I just think that's a genius question. It's like, hey, this is how data is currently being used, and it's having these negative consequences. Then you ask a very, like, powerful question, like, what would, like, how could we use this data, the same data, but, like, in a positive light, in a positive matter? What could we do with that actually would make the world and humans better? So
Exactly.
love that. So go on.
And so the initial thing we did was we wanted to just explore what the data is, like, what it means to people right now. Like, so we built a tool that let you take your Facebook data, which you download from Facebook, upload it to our tool, and then we could kind of show you what Facebook knows about you, different sort of personality traits that they might extract from your data, different interests of yours that they, you know, think you had. We built that tool, and it was interesting, and we kind of used it as a way to talk with people about, like, data and the future and, like, what they wish it was used for instead of what it's currently used for. And then through hundreds of conversations like this, we had like a few thousand people use that tool. We kind of landed on using the data to help people achieve their goals, like in a positive way, to assess how they're doing on different goals, to give them tips for how they can improve, and that slowly morphed into Magicflow, what we are today. So, yeah, like ultimately, if you can use data to help someone measure how they're doing on things that matter to them and help them improve on those things, like that's a way more positive vision of how to use data. And ultimately, like if you end up building personal AI that is built on top of this data, and it has your goals in mind, it's aligned with you, the individual, to try and help you, rather than to align with like Facebook and advertisers and stuff. That's going to be a much more powerful piece of software, and it'll be better. So at the moment, we're just we're building a productivity tracker which tracks your productivity and helps you do more deep work. That's using some of the data on how you use your devices to try and help you procrastinate less, be more productive.
Yeah. Can you give a bit of a flow or example of like, I guess, how it would work, and I guess like what data you're collecting and how you're helping people improve their productivity?
Yeah, sure. So at the moment, we track like productivity data on your laptop. So like what websites you're going to, what apps you're using, that kind of stuff. And we also sync with like Apple Health, so we can track your sleep, your exercise levels, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So when you have a day that is like super productive and you spend almost all of your time in categories of work that you have marked as productive, like coding or designing or marketing, then we are able to we store that data, and then we assess over the long periods of time, like how has your sleep on that day when you did really well, and on days that you don't do so well? How did your exercise patterns in the day leading up to that day? How did those things affect how likely you are to be productive?
Yeah, and I saw a tweet where you put an example of this, and you said like, oh wow, I noticed that whenever I wake up earlier, for example, like I don't spend as much time in flow, which I think is like the opposite for most people. But it's like people would say like, oh, wake up earlier, like you'll be more focused or whatever. But the data is telling you like, hey, if you wake up earlier, you're not going to spend as much time in flow, or not going to be as focused. So that's like the actionable insights you're delivering.
Exactly. Right? And there's lots of like counterintuitive things, I think, that are hidden in the patterns of our life. But we as humans, we just can't track 100 different metrics and sort of like crunch the numbers in our head to assess what actually works for us. I would have assumed that waking up earlier would have been better for me, just because like, I would have had a better start to my day or whatever. But it turns out that the extra sleep of waking up a little bit later outperforms the earlier wake up hustle culture, hustle fawn that most people assume is right for them. And so I think like what we want to do is we want to uncover those patterns so that like whatever does actually work best for you, you get to find that out, instead of living in a sort of vague, hazy world where you've read a blog post and it said this, so you're going to do that for the next 10 years. It's like, wow, we should probably figure out like what actually affects your productivity so that you could do that, instead of just like whatever the latest thing that, Tim Ferriss, James Clear, like someone who is writing productivity blogs, like suggests you do. Everyone is different. We should be able to personalize our advice based on what actually changes how you perform.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think there's literally like so many like interesting and unique ways in which we operate, and it's like almost impossible to be aware of all of that. So I think one question is like, what are all the data points that are leaving clues of who we are and how we operate? How can we track that data and use it to increase our awareness of who we are, how we work, in order to help tell us the patterns? I think the first thing is just the awareness, and then the second thing is to kind of like I think this is where the AI maybe comes in more, is like give recommendations on what you should do based on who you are and what your patterns are in order to be more productive. And are you using like AI right now in the app in any way? But if not, I assume it must be like soon in the roadmap.
So we are using AI for some things, like specifically when we come across a piece of like activity that we haven't seen before and we don't have a category for, like a website that isn't in our database of categories, or an app. We need to find a way to categorize that doesn't necessarily involve us going in and categorizing it or forcing our users to categorize everything themselves. So we actually use GPT-3 which is a language model that OpenAI has developed to generate embeddings and compare how similar the app or the website that someone's gone to is to the categories that we have, basically in this high dimensional space.
Interesting.
So we use that, and then we don't use ultimately for analytics and stuff. There's not been as much progress in like AI for analytics, at least easily publicly accessible, like feed in the data, get out the response, as there has been in like language models and image generation over the past like couple of years. I think that's going to change, and obviously like there are interesting ways to do it, but it's just not as easy to plug into your app as language model stuff is. But multilinear regression is a very, very, very simple like model. You could call it machine learning. I don't know how much people do, but we do use multilinear regressions on the data. So we collect lots of things about how you're working, from like how long the sessions you are spending at your computer are, how many times are you switching contexts from coding to marketing to communicating in email and meetings, and so that like we can tell you how much deep work you're able to do in any one of those contexts. And then we also sync up with like Apple Health or other sort of wearable devices. So we can get in your sleep data, your steps data, your exercise data, both steps, workouts, calories burned, that kind of stuff. So we can kind of build a model of how much exercise you've done in the last few days. What's your sleep debt? Not just your sleep last night, but like the accumulation of the sleep you've had over the last 2 weeks. How is that going to affect your productivity? Because we've all had those days where we only had like 4 hours of sleep and we wake up feeling great. But if you do those 4 hours of sleep for 3 days, you're not feeling great on the 4th day when you wake up. And that's because you've accumulated sleep debt. Like 1 day of bad sleep, often you actually feel pretty good after. But once you've had a few, you start to really notice.
Yeah, it's like debt. You got to pay off the debt.
Exactly.
What I find interesting about this is that you're almost like finding the overlap and intersection between data on your productivity and health data.
Oh yeah.
And by finding the correlations between the two, I think the big mantra here is what gets measured gets managed. And so since you're measuring this at a very like intricate level, you're also creating the right incentives, right? Like if I can more clearly see the correlations between my productivity and my health, it's like, shit, I better like one up my health because I want to be more productive and grind more. So
yeah, I think it's really important to know that we're not just trying to tell people grind harder, like work harder, lock yourself in a room and be more productive. Like I think a big part of what we're trying to do here is say like everything is connected. Your work affects your sleep affects your work, your exercise affects both your sleep and your work. So if you are trying to be more productive, it is not simply a matter of sitting down in front of your computer for longer and working longer and harder. It is actually like getting yourself in the right mind space, mental state to be prone to get into flow and to do your best work. If you haven't exercised for 2 weeks and you've slept poorly, like it doesn't matter if you spend 12 hours in front of your laptop, you're not going to get very much done. You'll probably get like less than 3 hours work of quality work done because you're just not in the right place for it. So we think, I don't know, like we think there's a holistic measurement thing, like holistic productivity where like actually going and working out today is overall going to help you be more productive even though you spent an hour and a half not working. It's still a productive activity to work out. And so, yeah, we want to like help people bring balance to their productivity and their life in a way that doesn't feel like it's a trade-off and in a way that feels like a win-win. Because it's like, I'm going to go work out now because not only is it good for my health, but also it doesn't make me less productive. It makes me more productive in the long run.
Yes.
Which I think is like, if we can prove that, then that's awesome. And people will just, start to do that.
No, because the problem is most people don't see like the value of health. So if you directly connect it with something they do care about, like their work or productivity, then like
most young people don't see
incentive.
It.
Yes,
old people really see the value of
health.
Yeah.
They're kind of forced to.
Yeah.
But yeah, and one last thing I'll say here is there's this very powerful concept that I think is worth sharing, which is a lot of the friction of like, going for a run, going to the gym, doing exercise is like, damn, it like takes time, but I want to work more.
Yeah.
But the mindset I use, which works a lot of the time, is that it's not an expensive time, it's an investment of time.
Totally.
And the big thing is to question, like, what is the return on time that this thing will give me, right? So yeah, I'll go to the gym, it'll take me 30 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever, but in return, I'm getting more energy, better health, which helps me be more focused. So yes, it's like less quantity of time working, but higher output and more effectiveness and efficiency, which at the end of the day, productivity is just like a multiplier of efficiency and effectiveness times like the quantity, but you want to make sure all of those things are aligned. So I think about that a lot.
And like if you're trying to improve your productivity, like think about the time scale that you're trying to improve it on. Are you just trying to improve it today? Because if so, then yes, probably working 16 hours today, you'll get more done than working 6 hours today. But if you're trying to improve it this decade, well, if you're not healthy and you sleep poorly for 9 years, that 10th year is going to be a write-off. You're going to be burnt out. You're going to be like, you might be dead. Like it's possible to be so unhealthy that you have like a much higher chance of mortality by the time you're 30, 40, whatever it is. And so, you know, if you're trying to optimize it for your lifetime, like you can have a 50-year productive career, or you can actually be unable to work and, you know, be hospitalized in your 50s. So it's like, yeah, think about the time scale. If you plan and think long term, then you want to be as healthy as possible, and you want to sleep well to maintain your brain's capabilities like late into your career, like rather than sort of having them degenerate because you've been taking 4-hour nights for your whole 20s. And so, yeah, by the time you're 40, your brain is fried.
Yeah. You want to keep that long-term longevity mindset in mind. Super important. But yeah, okay. So I'm curious, going like a little more into the weeds now, like what stage are you guys currently at? Like, you know, maybe whatever you can share in terms of like number of users, maybe money you've raised, kind of like the scope of where you are now. And the follow-up to that is like, what are like top of mind challenges and problems that you're currently facing?
Yeah. So at the moment we are, we have like 40 like paying users that are sort of weekly actives, about like 15 daily active users. So it's early. You know, we have been working with this group of users basically since June for, I guess, 3 months now, just to kind of refine the product. And in the last sort of week, I've been transitioning away from just doing product work into doing growth work, which for most builders is a really hard transition. And I'm definitely finding that hard to like stop, like to extract myself from the product and stop trying to fix everything I think is wrong with it, because there's still loads wrong. So we've raised in total like 70K over the lifetime of the company. So not a huge amount relative in startup terms, but you know, definitely really cool to have raised money so that we can actually work on this full time and build this cool thing that we think is going to be really impactful. So that's kind of where we are now. My next challenge as a founder is to totally change what I'm doing day to day and go from trying to be the best builder I can be, design and code, and you know, like trying to figure out how to make the product itself better, which is, you know, still definitely the thing which I get most excited by in my day-to-day work, to trying to figure out how to get at least a small to medium number of people coming through the door every week, so that we can actually learn from new users and see how new users. We've made so many changes since June. Like the product is way better. At least I think so. Otherwise, I wouldn't have made those changes. And so I think that, you know, the metrics that we see will be better as a result. And the only way to find that out is to get more users. And if the metrics are really good, then we'll spend a lot more time on user acquisition than we have been in the past. So yeah, figuring out growth strategy, figuring out like how to write good content, how to do like SEO, which is some dark magic that I think a lot of founders ignore because it has quite a long-term payback period. But I think it's one of the few things that is super reliable. Once you get the engine going, your SEO tends to just like be a very good source of semi-organic kind of growth for the long run. You know, figuring out like, should I be making TikToks? Should I be going on podcasts like this? And I thought the answer to that one was definitely
Don't
yes.
worry, you'll get a million users after this podcast.
Exactly.
I promise.
This podcast is going to blow up. So yeah, that's where we're at. Super interesting time. It's always fun, exciting, and like weird, like changing what your day-to-day like literal work is from one kind of category of work to a totally different one, and having to like learn all of that, read loads of blog posts and watch some videos, and then try and just actually put it into practice as soon as you can, rather than just spending too long just learning. So published our first like blog posts, and now need to go and distribute them and like market them, because you can't just publish a post. You've got to actually like put it in front of people who are going to care. Otherwise, it's just sitting there and nothing happens to it. So interesting times.
That is the challenge. Feel free to have water if you want, by the way.
Nice.
But yeah, I think that's one of the funnest parts, but also one of the hardest parts about startups is all the hats that you have to wear, and but also get to wear.
Yeah.
I like to think of like getting to wear instead of having to wear. It's a mindset shift there. And going from building to like marketing mindset is like, whoa, it's a shit, I'm looking at code all day, and now like I'm looking at like marketing all day.
Yeah, exactly.
Not easy. But how do you think about that? Because I mean, I'm facing a lot of the same challenges. Like we've launched like 3 months ago, have like 550 downloads, like nothing crazy. Like still trying to figure out like a reliable marketing channel, and it's been a challenge. To be frank. So how do you think of like getting those first 1,000 users, or just finding a reliable marketing channel that works? How are you thinking about this?
As a total non-expert who has not figured it out, I guess there's a couple stages. Like you've got to first like find out what other people have done, because you're going into it clueless. This is often the case as a founder. You're like, oh, I need to do a thing. I need to build an app. I've never done that before. How do I go do that? And so, there was a point where I literally Googled like, marketing for startups, and I was reading blog posts about it. There's an amazing blogger, newsletter writer, podcaster called Lenny Rachitsky. Who
super good
has
newsletter.
Some great posts on how different startups got their first 1,000 users. How can you start growing? Like, what are the different things? Like, what are the different types of activities that will get you more users in the door? You can have like these big kickstart activities, which like then kind of fade over time, like a product hunt launch. You can have like engines, which like hopefully will just continue to ramp up and up and up. And like, SEO might be one of those. Like, paid ads can be them if you get good payback on your ads. So I guess like I've read a bunch of stuff, and the sort of conclusion I've come to is that probably definitely worth trying out content and seeing if I can write and distribute content in a way that gets people excited here and now, and then also in the future might rank well on Google when people search for things that are related to Magicflow and what we're doing. And then I guess like it's hard to completely ignore something like TikTok, where if you make a great video, like it does just blow up. There's no like kind of gatekeeping. It's like the algorithm shows it to people, if people like it, then you get in a really positive loop. So in the next, let's say next week, I'm going to commit publicly here. I'm going to make it at least 2 TikToks next week, and then I'm going to do at least 2 the week after. I'm going to aim for more than that. I'm going to try and do like, I don't know, like 5. Just to see what happens.
Go. I like that.
And like ultimately it's just like the sort of framework for it is like there are channels where it's like where people that you want to reach hang out. Like what do the people you want to reach do? Where are the places in the world that you might happen to get put in front of them?
Yes.
Those channels are anything from like literally people walk around. So if you know where they might be walking around because like there's a conference going on where they're all going to be at, you can go there and literally meet users there. Channels also might be Hacker News or Twitter or Reddit or podcasts or TikTok or any kind
Facebook
of place.
Groups, yeah.
Facebook groups. Any place where people that you want to reach like hang out and spend time. And then there's content, and content is whatever they see of yours, which you hope will hook them and get them interested and make them want to sign up, make them want to use your product. And like at the highest level, I guess that's just how it works. You've got channels, you've got content, you want to find the right content to put in the right places so that people see it and find it interesting.
Right.
Now,
so those two kind of complement, right? Like you have content that's kind of like your hook in many ways, whether it's like blogs or TikToks, which, by the way, excited to see the TikToks. You are now going to be held publicly accountable. So great job. So and then like I guess your content is like your hook. It's also thought leadership. Like, hey, this is what we believe about the world and what we think is important. I think it has that effect as well in sort of generating a brand perception. And then after you have that, it sounds like you're saying you should bring in people based on the communities or places in which you would find that person.
Yeah,
right.
You got to figure out where, like, hopefully you know some people who are already in your target market. If you don't know anyone who you think is a target user, it's a reasonably not great sign, because it means that you are unlikely to have really understood their problems because you don't know them personally. So if you don't literally know one person at least that you can say that person needs what I'm building, or that company, it's pretty hard to fully understand their problem and then build the right solution for it.
Yeah, that's kind of like the starting point in many ways as well, because in order to know where that person hangs out, as well as like what sort of content would appeal to them, you have to know who that person is very intimately. Which I'm also curious, like how would you describe the person you're building for, and how'd you figure that out? Like, did you just say like, oh, we're building for X, or like how'd you figure out like who is it, and how'd you figure out who to build for?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the hacks for this is to build for yourself and people like you in some ways, basically. For us, we are building for people who see work as a source of meaning in their life that they care about and they want to do better at, for their own personal intrinsic motivations. They want to be more productive, either because they can get their work done faster and go and spend more time with their kids, or because they want to whatever they're trying to do, they want to do it better and they want to push the world forwards in that way. So like that's like, to be really specific, it's like founders like you, founders at F Inc. It's early stage tech employees. It is freelancers, indie hackers, like all these kinds of people who are like independent and generally like optimizers, like people who are trying to improve themselves, trying to and willing to use technology to do that. The first thing we built, which was like, what does Facebook know about you? It was a little app that, you would take your Facebook data and we would tell you what Facebook knows about you. We had no idea who that was for, other than like hobbyists, like, people who are like a bit curious about it. It was kind of for everyone who uses Facebook, all 2.6 billion of them.
Great market.
I know, great market, right? Just times 2.6 billion by 5, and that's your monthly revenue. And right, we're crushing it.
Wow. Where can I invest?
Exactly. Right? TAM. Total addressable market. Anyway, and so we were clueless on that front then. And actually, like, what we learned from that experience is like, we kind of built something which is kind of interesting. Like, when we talked to people about it, they're like, oh, that's pretty interesting. It was really like current with like the social dilemma and like different like privacy related documentaries being released, but we didn't have any good sense of who our target user was. Like, we could say some words like, oh, let's go with like a late 20s person with some who's a few years into their career and is exhausted with tech, but it's like we didn't really know anyone that like was that person. And we were not necessarily that person, other than having sort of like had these conversations and ended up becoming quite passionate about like what happens with our data. So yeah, actually the number one piece of advice I give like entrepreneurs who are at that early stage, like trying to figure out what their idea is, the thing I noticed the most is like, this person doesn't know who they're building for. And one way that people try, and that we tried before, like when we were building this Facebook thing, to deal with that, is you just invent a persona that doesn't really exist and that isn't really who you're building for. But in order to give a specific answer to that question, you've invented one.
Can you give an example of that persona, either for Magicflow now or in
when you don't know who you're building for, you can still pull words out of a hat and end up with a persona that it's somewhat a legitimate thing, but it's not truly who you're actually building for. You've made it up. That was what I was saying, like a 28-year-old like tech employee. They're frustrated with like how big tech is, like hoovering up data and using it to destroy democracy, like whatever. Like someone who's watched The Social Dilemma, you can lie to yourself that you have a specific persona that you're building for, when actually you don't, and you just kind of made up an imaginary persona that sounds specific enough. It sounds specific enough that you feel like you have ticked this box of knowing who you're building for. But we hadn't ticked that box. We were lying to ourselves. Now, I hope we have ticked that box, because I can look around this place that we are in, Founders Inc., and I can point at the people here as being like, this group of unique individuals. These specific people are people that I I'm building for. They are in my target market. They are like me as well, which is great because it means that if I build for myself, I'm inherently building for other people like me on these dimensions as well. Founders, early stage startup employees, people interested in like tracking themselves and improving themselves. And so it's only clear in contrast to what we thought, before about who we were building for, that now we have a clear and crisp idea. We can literally like list, 20, 30, 100 people that we personally know who are this persona and are in general trying to do this thing that we are trying to help people do. And that makes life so much easier because you can actually talk to friends of yours or people that you know who have the problem.
Yeah.
And you can actually show them your app, and you're not just showing them an app which they're never going to use, but they're going to say, oh yeah, it looks great. Yeah. You actually like get to see if they get excited and they want to use it, and they then go to your website and download it. If they don't go and do those things, you know that what you've built is not yet actually speaking to them. It's not yet exciting them and making them want to. They haven't seen the magic in your product yet. So,
they haven't found the magic flow.
Yeah.
I feel like one way that I would maybe go about this, I'm curious how you think about it, like to get a little more concrete here, is you have like a user interview or you talk to someone. They seem to like, I guess maybe you should have some intuition like, yes, this is like someone that we're building for. And then after that interview, you start to craft like a persona around that person. It's like, oh, this is Michael, he's 28 and then he lives in this and he cares about these things or whatever. And then I think the helpful thing about that is that one, you have like almost like this deck of people that are who you're building for. And then anytime you have to make a decision like, hey, should we do X? Should we do Y? Blah, 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 blah. It's like you consult with your persona. Obviously you should go and talk to them. That's like the best path. But maybe sometimes like, like it may take some time, be hard or whatever, so you can like easily consult those personas. But maybe like the higher level to that is to also start to notice what is the pattern among these people. And I think once you put them into like cards and group them is when those patterns may become more apparent. So, yeah.
Yeah, I sort of think that, so you can sort of decide you're building something and not have a clear idea yet, get a bunch of people to use it, figure out what kinds of people they are, and then like find your persona that way. But I think it's like kind of dangerous because you're more likely to lie to yourself rather than deciding who you want to build for before you've even come up with an idea.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Like if you know who you're building for and like that's what you're passionate about helping them, then you always know who you should go talk to because you've defined that group and you know people in it and you can go talk to them.
Yeah.
And then also you're not going to build stuff that no one wants because you're always going to start with real people and solving their problems. I know that like the DoorDash founders, they literally had a friend's small business and they were just asking with them about what their problems were. And they found out that getting things that the store didn't do delivery, even though people would call in and ask for the delivery all the time. And so then they were like, oh, why don't you do delivery? And they're like, what? What do you mean? They're like, well, why don't you do delivery? It's like, what, you want me to get on a bike and go, like, you want me to get in my car and go, like, drive these flowers over? Like, I don't have time to do that. Like, that's crazy. And then because they had decided they wanted to serve small, medium, like, physical stores to, like, help them, they were able to then just go pursue that rather than kind of coming at it with like, I have a great idea for something that I don't know anyone who needs, but it sounds cool, so I'm going to go build it. That's probably the thing that I wish that I had really, really internalized beforehand. Like, who do I want to serve?
Wow.
And I decided I wanted to serve like founders and like ambitious, passionate people trying to do cool things who want to like do those things better and be more efficient doing them. And like that's been really great for me because I've been able to spend a lot of my time talking to and building for these people that I like really want to help.
Yeah, you're also way more passionate about it just because like that's me too.
Yeah. Exactly.
But what I really love about this is that I think one of the biggest mistakes founders make is they have an idea, they're like, this is going to be great. Maybe they like build it and then they're trying to either they're trying to find people that this is for, right? So I guess
Yes,
most people do the
exactly.
opposite thing.
Exactly.
Idea, build something, and then it's like, okay, let me go find like who this is actually
Who
for.
maybe wants this?
And you obviously have a super strong bias in that, like, oh, this person, yeah, I think
You're
that's
really
what I'm building
incentivized
for.
to lie to yourself, because at this
Yeah.
point you've spent 6 months and you've come up with an idea and you've built a product, and then now you're like, okay, who needs this? They need it. They need it. You need a car. You need a car. Like you really, really want all these people to need what you've built, and so you're so likely to say, yeah, they're my persona, and fabricate a persona that doesn't truly exist and doesn't truly need what you want. Versus if you really do start from the position of who you're serving and you just want to solve a problem for them, then that is where you are much more likely to like actually end up solving a real problem for people.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Interesting. No, and this is also super, like, I think one of the most important things in like the 0 to 1 phase is obviously like finding product market fit, PMF, and this is like one of the most critical steps to that. But I'm also curious, like, how do you think about product market fit? What does it mean to you? Are you there? Are you not? How do you know you're there? How are you thinking about this maybe like great filter of product market fit?
Yeah, I mean, product market fit definitely is probably like the biggest filter between like a company that has started and has charged money and becoming a billion-dollar company, a unicorn or whatever.
Yeah.
We do not have product market fit. No. There's kind of two ways of like asking yourself, do you have it? One is like the experiential way, where the feeling of having product market fit is when people are banging down the door to come and like buy your product as fast as you can make it, and like your servers are crashing, and like ultimately like you are just keeping up with demand because there is so much of it. And I don't think that's a very useful way of defining it, other than to make it clear when you don't have it. So it's useful to know for knowing that you don't have it if like things are like demand is not like so crazy that your mind is blown and you're struggling to actually serve the demand. I think a more useful way to define it for helping you to actually go and achieve it is, ultimately you need to answer the question of how much does the market like my product, and how important is my product to this market? How much do they want it? And there's a classic post in the sort of Silicon Valley community by the founder of Superhuman, Rahul Vohra, where he was frustrated about there not being a good way to actually know if you're anywhere close to product market fit, and you don't know how far away you are, and you don't know what you need to do to get there. And it's everyone's talking about how it feels to have product market fit, and therefore, okay, we don't have it. But how am I supposed to go and take the fact that we don't have it and then go get it? Because that's what I want. I want product market fit. And so he has this great post about how Superhuman constructed what they called an engine, and it's basically they have a survey that they ask people. The most important question is, how disappointed would you be if you could no longer use this product? Like if it vanished tomorrow. And the minimum bar for product market fit should be around 40%. If 40% of your users would be really disappointed if it went away tomorrow, you might have product market fit. And if it's only 10%, you definitely don't. And even if it's 40%, it still only be might, because there might not be a big enough market or whatever. And the good thing about that is that then you can measure the changes you're making to your product before you have product market fit to see if you're getting closer. And that's super helpful because everyone likes to have a metric to optimize. And so if you are able to measure that, you can actually move towards it. It's not as exciting a definition as your hair's on fire and people are pulling the product out of you and all this kind of stuff, but it's a more useful definition for people who are trying to achieve it.
Yeah, it's like a more quantitative one or more actionable one you can take, which is really useful. And yeah, I've heard this one, and it's definitely one of my favorite ways to think about it, or at least measure it as well. And one thing I would add on top of that is that if you have a product that people would be indifferent, they wouldn't really care whether it exists or not, then it's possible that you probably have a vitamin instead of a painkiller, right? If people would be really frustrated and disappointed that this product wouldn't exist and be like, no, what do you mean you're taking the product away? that's like kind of how you know for you've hit on a painkiller, which is like what you want. And even like one level beyond that, I've realized is that it's almost impossible to even reach a painkiller if you're not even trying to tackle a pain point that's really deep and significant.
Yeah.
So you almost need to like make sure that whatever you're trying to solve is a very deep pain point. And then if you are solving a deep pain point, but you're not doing a great job at it, then it might be a vitamin, and what you need is a painkiller. So that's kind of how I think about it too there.
Yeah.
But great. One thing I wanted to ask about you, I feel like I have to. You're building a productivity hack, so I'm curious, like, how do you think about productivity? Like, what does it mean to be productive, and like, what do you think are some of the biggest hacks that people can take home with them and to be more effective and efficient in everything that they do?
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of touched on the definition of productivity there. Like, are you able to do the thing you want to do? Like, are you achieving the outcome that you want? Like productivity, like the word like was started to get used a lot when we had like factories and we were making widgets and stuff. And it's like productivity was like the amount of widgets you were able to crank out in an hour. That's how productive that machine or worker or whatever it was. Today, you know, in most of our work, we don't necessarily have a certain number of widgets we have to crank out. So it's a little bit more amorphous today, like what productivity is and like measuring it. But ultimately, it's still about like, can you produce output in an effective way? So the way that we measure productivity in Magicflow is we track how the percentage of time that you spend working versus not working. Because obviously, if you're not working, you're definitely not being productive if you're on Netflix. We also track what categories of work you're doing. So are you coding? Are you designing? Are you marketing? That kind of thing. And the reason why we track those is so that we can tell when you context switch between categories. So if you go from coding to marketing to design, and you're really only spending like, you know, 10 to 15 minutes on each one of those, like every time you context switch, you're losing all of the kind of like the tower of like thoughts and like data that you've been thinking about when you're thinking about coding or thinking about marketing, and you lose all of that when you go and do design, and then you have to build up a whole new set of things in your working memory to go and do that new context well. So minimizing context switches is an important way to actually kind of get more work done within like the same amount of time, because instead of losing 5-10 minutes every time you switch, you get that time for free to actually focus on what you're doing. And then the third thing that we look into is session lengths. And it's for a similar reason to why we look at context switches. But if you're, you know, only spending 10 minutes at a time, like actually working at your laptop, and every 10 minutes you're getting distracted by your phone, and you spend 5 minutes on your phone, or you need to go get a drink of water, or you need to, you know, go to the loo, or like whatever it is or a friend comes over and taps you on the shoulder and you talk to them for 5 minutes. Like all of these things, even though they are important and you should do them, maybe not getting distracted by your phone, but hey, like they break you out of the context that you're in. And so we think it's important to spend longer sessions at your laptop than 10 minutes, so that it gives you more opportunity to get into flow. So yeah, we give you a productivity score out of 100. It's never going to be a perfect measure of productivity because we don't actually know how much output you created while you were coding. And you know, like sometimes you code something and it's the next $1 billion app. So that's a lot of output from the time you spent coding that. And then sometimes, you know, you code something and it doesn't go anywhere. So, you know, we can't measure like the true eventual outcome. But what we can measure is like how much quality time and quality like inputs did you provide into your work. And so that's what we're trying to measure. So then like the main things that I've changed about my life and the way I work since I started measuring myself with Magicflow was like, I realized my session lengths were not very long and I was context switching a lot. So I found that I would get up whenever I needed to do a thing, whether it was go get more coffee, get water, go to the loo. And so I found like every like sort of 15 minutes, roughly, like there was a reason why I needed to get up. And so I feel like every time you sit down at your laptop, you're giving yourself a new opportunity to get into flow, and you might not get into it. But then once you do get into it, if you then get up every 15 minutes, it's gone. And so you need to try again next time you sit down. So what I did is I started saying, okay, every time I get up from my laptop, I'm going to try and do all of the things that require me to get up from my laptop. So if I get a coffee, I'm not just going to get a coffee and sit down. I'll get a coffee and I'll go, get water. I'll go to the loo. I'll check my messages, make sure I can reply to anything that needs doing. And then when I sit back down, I don't have any reason to get up for 30, 40 minutes, up to I've had a 2-hour session before. That's probably the longest focused work thing I've ever done. And I was like, wow, I can't believe that just happened, but that was cool. But my average is probably about 40 minutes now. Whereas when I started measuring it, it was 15 to 20. And so that, if you think about how long it takes you to get into flow and get really into your work when you sit down, it takes about 10 minutes. So whenever my average was 20 minutes, 50% of the time I was actually spending at my laptop working was basically wasted because I was figuring out, okay, what am I doing? Make sure I'm in the right tabs, open up VS Code, setting myself up. Whereas now 40 minutes or 50 minutes, you end up with 3-4x the amount of actually productive work that you get out of the session. And then with context switches as well, it's so easy if you don't do anything to just end up responding immediately to all Slack messages. It's easy to just kind of go down tangents and
every distraction has the potential of getting completely lost in a whole different tangent. Kind of like in a conversation, you do one tangent, be gone.
We spent a lot of time talking about the meaning of life earlier. That was a tangent, but it was a really interesting one.
Great ass tangent.
Sometimes tangents are good. I'm not of the belief that you should only ever do deep work, because in a way, deep work is zoning in, and you are deep in flow, and it's actually really fun. But it's making progress in one direction. Deep work. It's always in a very directed manner. But other kinds of work and non-work are just as important for taking a step back and having a view of the whole the context of what you are doing at all. Why are you working, and what are you working on? And so it's just as important to kind of go for a walk and talk with friends about the direction of your project and are you working on the right stuff, as it is to just sit down and make progress. It's good. You need to do both, basically.
It's the difference between convergent and divergent thinking, and the analogy you said, it's the difference between walking and running.
Explore, exploit as well. There's so many different people who have come to the same realization that you need to both go wide and go narrow and deep. So explore, exploit, it's go and find all the different things that could be good to do. And then once you've found the thing that is best to do, then you go and do that. Divergent, convergent thinking, it's look at all the solution space and then pick, and then narrow it down to the ones you're actually going to do. That's design thinking. There's a guy called Richard Hamming who was at Bell Labs back in the day doing research, and he noticed the exact same pattern with the researchers there, which were some of the most productive researchers on a month-to-month basis. They had their office door closed, and they spent a lot of time in there doing deep work, basically. And so they churned out great papers and stuff on the stuff they were working on. But what he noticed was that over the course of a long career, because they had their door closed, they it's almost metaphorical. They weren't open to new ideas, and they didn't come across the new trends in the world and fast enough. And so even though they were productive in that sort of narrow, deep direction, they didn't spend enough time actually assessing which direction they should go in. And so their work wasn't as impactful as some of the people who, even though on a day-to-day basis they were slightly less productive, because they were better at directing themselves and reorienting themselves, because they had more context on what was going on in their industry, in their academic field. They were much better able to pick the important questions to focus on and answer.
Yes.
And picking the important questions, picking the important directions you want to go in life is at least as important, I think more important than how fast you can go in that direction.
There's no good in having the best answers if you're asking the wrong questions.
Exactly.
It does no good to build the best product in the world if it's not super impactful or for something someone wants. But I think it's often I find in life that the ideal is a balance between two extremes, convergence, divergence, explore, exploit. I think the challenge is knowing what that balance is, and I think that ideal balance should be changing depending on your context. In this stage of life, what matters more is exploring and being more creative and whatnot. But hey, now I know what I not want. I have good clarity. I'm gonna be super freaking focused, heads down, go at it. But if I go in this direction for like a couple days, couple weeks, couple months, and not getting where I want. It's like, okay, time to walk for a little bit again and see like, shit, maybe I wasn't so sure.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's hard to know when to do one versus the other. But how do you think about, like, how do you know when to be in convergence versus divergence mode and whatnot?
Yeah. I think that like, for some people anyway, for me, I find that like my subconscious, I think like knows if I'm not feeling certain about the direction I'm going, and I actually start to like feel physically like, you know, something's a little off. Like I feel like a little tension in my back, something like that. And I start to kind of just like want to spend more time thinking and like kind of reevaluating what I'm doing from first principles, trying to like be like, okay, why am I doing this? Why am I doing that? Like rebuilding like why I think this is the right direction to go in. Yeah. But looking at other, like while I do that, I'm not just trying to rebuild that, like the kind of justification for going in that direction. I'm also looking at the other directions I could be going in. So like that has like the way that we have kind of pivoted over time has basically just been every time I'm like, this doesn't feel like it's working. It doesn't feel like we're going in the right direction. And like I'm feeling some level of, you know, weirdness about that. Then I kind of rebuild the like why I think we should go in that direction. But I'm also then exploring the other like just like reasons we could go in other directions. And then sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, we should be going in that direction instead. And actually the reason why that's changed is because of, you know, this particular thing, which I thought was true, is not true. And I found something out, and it was only through going like through that process of stepping back, going for a walk, you know, like sometimes just like getting a bunch of sticky notes and just like writing on the wall and like trying to lay out what the master plan is and why we're doing it. I find that really helpful. I think really specific, like you should take, like you shouldn't, like having a balance of the two extremes is not about being in the middle of the two extremes all the time. It is about sometimes being on one side of the extreme and sometimes being on the other side. So what that means to me is like sometimes you do commit to a month of just like hard charging in one direction. Like you are directed and you are going to go in that direction. But you need to make sure that you do have like a week then, which you then spend like a day. You know, it doesn't like how like you can do this on a day, like in different time periods. You can even do it on a day. Like at the start of the day, figure out like step back. What do I want to do? What's the most important thing I could be working on? And then you're, you know, being expansive. And once you figure that out and you've decided what it is for today, then you narrow down and you go work on that. And you can do that on a weekly, monthly, yearly basis. And if you're just kind of constantly, you have that kind of that flip-flopping process going on. It's like figuring out what to do, then going and fucking doing it. Yeah. Like it's important to be on both sides of the extreme. Like really explore and really, really try and diverge and like get as many like ideas in your head as you can, and then once you've done that, pick a direction and then go really deep and direct it. Yeah,
you don't want to half-ass the like exploration phase, because then if you explore a little bit but you don't feel like you have closure there, and then you start like exploding and running again, you may have like doubts or like things creeping up in your mind.
And you really don't want to half-ass the running and directed stage either, because then you've gone and tried to pursue it, but you've also been like sort of, you know, not completely committed to it. And so then you'll actually never know if the reason why something didn't work or didn't take off was because it was never going to work, or if you just didn't actually commit to it enough and you didn't like try and do it hard enough. So you've really got to try and like, once you've decided, okay, here's the direction, you want to really like charge down, like do that, like give it its best possible shot and then step back.
Yes. Yeah, I like that. So I'm going to summarize the three things in like how to know whether to explore versus exploit, or converge versus diverge. One is like just how you feel, right? If you're like running hard but something doesn't feel right, like walk a little bit. There could be something there. Two is that it could be time bound. You could be like, all right, I think I have clarity on a direction. Let me just run full sprint for 2-3 months. And then like I'll re-explore at that time and take some time to explore and see where we are. And then the third is something very interesting you mentioned is, okay, I'm going in this specific direction because of X, Y, and Z assumption, right? Like I assume these things to be true, therefore I'm going in that way. But my goal in going in this direction and running is to try and validate or invalidate these assumptions, these hypotheses as soon as possible. And as soon as I gain clarity whether this assumption I made may be wrong, and if it is wrong, cool, let's like re-explore our position and see where we could go from there. But I think there's different ways you could do it.
Yeah.
Maybe it depends on the context, but those are 3 little ways you can think about it.
Yeah.
Cool. So coming into the final flow here, one thing I'm curious about is that you've grown a lot as a founder. I think you've started your founder journey like 3.5 years ago or so.
No, just over 2 years ago.
2 years ago. Okay. So if you were to go back to like that day one of when you started your first company, you're like, fuck it, I'm gonna start a company. What would you tell yourself? Like what advice would you give yourself at that point, just at the beginning of your journey?
So I started trying to found a company before I really had very much real world like work experience or startup experience. And I think that's definitely doing it on hard mode because you don't even know what good looks like. You don't know like anything. Like and I didn't know how to code either. My co-founder Oscar did. But basically I was going in blind. I didn't know any of like the sort of best practices of what to do. And also I was going in with like this super crazy, ambitious, long-term vision of like how I was going to save the world, like what the big plan was. And for your first company, it's pretty hard to kind of, take humanity to Mars. Like if Elon's first company was SpaceX, like that would never have worked, right?
Yeah, it'd be
like
insane.
The first company was like Zip2, which was like put the yellow pages on the internet. Then it was PayPal, which was like a level up in ambition. And only after PayPal, which was already like ambitious and awesome, like really successful company, only then did he then start like 2 of the most ambitious companies like ever started. Well, he started SpaceX and he put a lot of effort into Tesla and kind of ended up like running it. And I think that there's something to learn from that, which I definitely didn't know at the start, which was like, if you want to be a startup entrepreneur, it's possible to just start with like the thing that the hardest possible problem you could solve that you think would be the most impactful for humanity if you were able to solve it. But like you are at your lowest skill level when you're starting out and you're a first time founder and you haven't, got a lot of experience.
Yeah.
Whereas actually, like, and I don't know, like I'm still here, I'm still working on it, and like and things are looking good now. So it kind of worked out, but like how much of that was luck, and I think we would have been a lot further along if we'd picked a much more well scoped problem, that was like much more about like solving a very direct pain point that people have right now, rather than starting with like a vision of the future that was super exciting to us that we wanted to build towards and trying to navigate some way towards that where we could build a sustainable company and then use that company to kind of pursue that vision. So yeah, I guess like I would recommend like if you have a way that you can like solve a person's problem that they're willing to pay you for basically today, like I would kind of recommend trying to start there first as your first company, like because like your life should be a bit easier as a startup founder if you are able to identify a problem that people will pay you for today. And like a lot of the ways that some of the great startup founders got started was like, the Intercom founders, they started by literally they had a web agency. So they would go and make websites for other people. Same with like the Basecamp founders, like a lot of people have started by just doing anything that people would pay them for, and then over time figuring out like what things they could build could be productized. And like once they have more contact with people willing to pay them for things, they find other things that they would be willing to pay for, which then they can build products for, that kind of stuff. Like going for like a kind of consumer privacy app that no one was really asking for, like definitely hard mode.
Yeah, no, or like building something like super out into the future that the market's not there yet. And actually, it's funny you mentioned that because I experienced this. Like my first startup was mission impossible. It was literally building a glass door for low-income factory workers in Mexico. And it was a country like, across the border. It was a type of user like low-income workers that we didn't know very well. It was a team of 5. I was the only one that spoke Spanish. And we had no ties to like Mexico or Tijuana. And it was like mission impossible. The only reason I decided to do it was because of Elon's sage wisdom, where he said like, when something's important enough, you do it even if the odds are not in your favor. I was like, okay, I know this isn't going to succeed, but I'll follow your advice, Elon.
Yeah.
And it was really fucking hard.
Well, there's so much advice out there, and different advice is for different people at different stages in their journey. And like, I think that like the standard advice of like join a company first, like a startup first, and like figure out how the whole world of startups works before you start your first one. I think that is like, in my mind anyway, that would have been good advice for me to follow, but I just couldn't follow it because I was too like, I was too passionate and excited about this idea, and and if you can't follow it, that's fine too. Just it is going to be harder. Whereas like if you've like gone and worked at Stripe and then you leave, you're like, I'm starting a company. Then like you'll get like 100 emails from VCs, be like, okay, we'll write you a first check. How does $1 million sound? Like it's a totally different experience if you kind of gone and like built credibility first and like learned actual useful skills first, than if you do what I did and kind of jump 2 feet in. However, Steve Jobs, like basically, I mean, he did work for Atari for a bit first, actually. I don't know. Like your mileage will vary, and some people will succeed completely by just like doing this first. But I think that your highest chance of success as a startup founder, which is a very risky thing, which is unlikely to succeed, is if you've given yourself the best opportunity to succeed, which like is skills, network, connections, all these things really help. Try and build those first, or start with a problem which people will pay you for like tomorrow.
Yes.
If you want to just build a startup, and then you can always go and build your big dream thing next. Hey.
Yeah, I think an important thing is to think about the roadmap. It's hard though. I don't know where I stand on this either, because if you feel really passionate and drawn to something, then like shit, like listen to that too. Like don't even if it's like Mission Impossible, like fuck it, like just don't. I mean, like you want to be optimistic, but also be realistic. Like I knew going into that first start, I was like, this probably won't succeed, but I was okay with that. Like it's fine. Like I know I'll learn a lot, and if it succeeds, like holy shit, like the impact will be immense.
Like I want to say I don't regret what I've done, and I've learned so much by jumping in at the deep end, like without being able to swim. Like it's definitely made me like learn to swim a lot faster. I've learned all the skills that I need as a startup founder because I didn't have them and I needed to have them, and I had a really, really passionate like reason to learn them. So you will learn faster if you go straight into it, probably because you kind of have to. I'm just saying, like do question it, like because it's also possible to kind of convince yourself that like what you're going to work on is the most important thing. When maybe after a few years working, you might find that there's an even bigger thing.
Yes.
I don't know. Like Elon knew he wanted to put people on Mars. Like when he was going on dates with people at, there's like a story of him talking about like electric cars in space with some date he went on.
Yeah, I
they didn't go on a second date, but he knew about it all the way back then. But he didn't like go and try and do that yet because he couldn't marshal the resources he needed to make that happen. So depending on what your big vision is, if your big vision is something which like it's B2B SaaS, like, and like people who want it already, then go crush it because that'll work.
Yeah. And actually, what I've learned recently that I think is probably more important than the probability of success is to just get started. It's just to just dive in. Because I used to think, like, someone gave me the advice, and I still think it's great advice, but they told me, don't go into something unless you're willing to dedicate at least 10 years to it, right? Like, don't do a startup unless, right? I think that's good advice. However, I think the downside of that is that it could present too much friction, right? It could be like, oh, well, I haven't found that thing yet that I'm willing to dedicate 10 years. Therefore, like, or like I have this idea, I think it's cool, like it has some of the components I like AI, but I'm not super obsessed about it. I don't know if I dedicate 10 years, so I'm not going to do it. And if you're like always waiting for that opportunity, like maybe it does come, but it's too late, and you have a family and all these things. So I think what's actually more important is to just get started, because that's how you learn the most. And if you wait too long for that moment, like you're leaving a lot on the table in terms of opportunity costs as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's everything. Yeah, everything's balanced. Like I wonder whether if I had joined a startup and I was crushing it there, like maybe I wouldn't be starting a startup now because I would be enjoying that so much. And so I'd be on a totally different life path, and that could have actually changed my entire future. So yeah, I mean, ultimately, I do think like jumping in with both feet, if you're not super passionate about the idea, is a risk, because you like, if a year in it's not going well, and it probably won't be going in well a year in unless you're super lucky, you're more prone to kind of give up. So
yes,
like, yeah, like I like definitely pick something you're passionate about. But yeah, I just get started, I think applies so damn much to like a side project, like building anything. Like you should just get started building anything at all, even if you don't know how to code. Like find a way to either learn like how to build something really small or use no code tools or whatever. Like just get started building things, because it's never too early to do that. Whether or not you should like commit 10 years of your life to something when you're not sure about it, like I think you should build side projects first, unless you find your like true north, like this is what I want to do. I want to build this thing, and I'm willing to sacrifice and dedicate myself to it. So yeah,
definitely. No, you definitely need to have something. It doesn't have to be, I think in my mind at least, like something super obsession, but you definitely need to have like passions or curiosities that it meet. Because I think it's a gradient of like how like much obsession or passion there is. And if you at least have like 70-80% passion, not 100%, I think that might be like
I think that's
good enough.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of successful founders of companies that are unsexy, but they have been incredibly impactful building those companies.
Yeah.
Like, I think most people would have said like supply chain and shipping, it was an unsexy category, but like Ryan Peterson from Flexport founded Flexport, insane. And it turns out that it's probably more interesting than you would have thought. So like looking at it from a distance, but also like he was passionate about it, and he was able to become passionate about it, and it's been huge and successful and stuff. So definitely not worth only pursuing stuff that you're passionate about. Like solve hard problems and things will work out.
Yeah. Basically. Plus, if you find something you like that most people think it's unsexy, that's an advantage because you have less competition.
Totally.
So, cool. Mike, last question for you. Mm-hmm. So, what is your vision for who you want to become and what you want to give, create, and achieve in your life? How will you invent the future?
Yeah, big question. I want to build tools that help people self-actualize and achieve more of what they want to achieve, and like increase the autonomy and capability of people. So the ability to direct themselves where they want to go and to achieve what they want to do. So like to start with, that's Magicflow, helping people with productivity stuff. But like in the longer run, I think Magicflow evolves into a sort of platform on which other people can build things that are like tightly integrated with a person's data, so that like we can have like hyper personalized apps that don't compromise your privacy. And I basically just want to make it like easier for people to build things, easier for people to have agency and to like have autonomy over what they're going to do with their life. And I want to try and solve some of the problems that are upcoming with sort of AI, like knowing us better than we know ourselves, and making sure that AI is aligned with us. Maybe even building it so that it is aligned with us as individuals, as humanity, that kind of stuff. I really want to help other founders. Like I find every conversation I have with like a serious founder to be really insightful. I love hearing about what they're building and why they're building it. I love like being able to just like do a few small things that actually have a really big impact on other companies as well. So like I'm always like down to like help basically like just give like a quick once over of someone's landing page and like actually like write CSS for them that will make their landing page not look bad. Like I think we've done a good job of making our landing page not look bad. So if you want your landing page not to look bad, you can always ask me to can I do that kind of stuff. I also think I'm pretty good at like helping someone uncover like what they actually care about and like dig into their true motivations for what they're doing. Like help someone direct themselves into like like the sorts of work that they actually should be doing and the sort of startup that they should found and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I kind of want to increase the agency of people in the world, make people like live like more positive lives, like happier lives. I would love to be able to do something to help like the bottom like 50% of the population, like particularly in education. I think education is like such a source of agency in life.
Oh yeah.
And I think like, okay, there's all the information in the world you could possibly want on the internet right now, and you could learn anything on the internet. But there's a huge issue, which is that it's not the reason why people aren't doing that. It's not because like schools aren't good enough at teaching them it. It's because schools aren't good enough at inspiring people to actually want to learn. Like we do such a bad job of explaining why people should learn things at school. Like, oh miss, when are we ever going to use this algebra? Like, and then like the teacher's response like is like, I don't know, like when you want to calculate your shopping list basket, whatever. Like terrible answers. Whereas actually like we should be like constructing curriculums that are not just based around the content itself, but based around explaining to people why it matters and inspiring people to want to go and learn more.
Yeah, the
like,
why.
Yeah, like homework should be not just like an obligation and a chore that you give people to kind of like force them to learn more stuff. Like there should be like a whole like kind of tree of things that that people can go and learn more and more and more. Like if you can manage to inspire them properly. Like the teachers that get celebrated and remembered are the ones who inspired the children, not the ones who got the children to get the highest grades on the test. Yeah. And I think that we're really missing something there. So I can definitely imagine like having a second act in my life post Magicflow, or even as part of Magicflow, like who knows where things will go, where I help try and figure out a way to inspire the teachers to inspire the children, or go directly to just inspiring the children in the way that like some companies like Primer and Synthesis School are doing. Like if you're a parent, I don't know how many parents listen to this, but if you are, like Primer and Synthesis School
My mom
are
listens
really
to this.
cool. Nice. So she can send you to these schools for children. Like companies like that are doing really cool things, like scaling them or finding even new ways to do things like that would be really cool. I also am super interested in like longevity. So I can imagine myself doing things there. And like my personal loves are around, like I have a really deep soft spot for gaming, and I have a bunch of games I want to make one day, but obviously time is limited and it's not the most important thing I could do. So, maybe one day if I have enough resources and I can maybe quarterback the creation of those games and stuff, rather than like going and coding them myself, I'd love to do that as well. So we'll see where things go.
Wow. We're going to really have to figure out longevity so you can have the time you need to do all that shit.
Yeah, exactly. That's the reason why I want to work on it, because we need more time in life. I actually think that like so much knowledge gets lost by people dying and by people aging. Like people basically spend their whole lives accumulating, like, imagine like a professor who's spent 50 years researching, but is getting to the end of their career, they're losing steam, and they at some point will die, and all the knowledge that they've developed will have lost with them. Like, people do say stuff like, science progresses one death at a time, which, is only true to the extent that science has establishment views that are really hard to challenge. But I think that if we were to have longer lived people, I don't think that human thought necessarily progresses that way. I think that it was really just like a super gate-kept science establishment for which that was true. I feel like now with so much more open access science, I think that's less true. And then if we can basically just have people like not die or have twice as long a life, in the same way as like your session length when you're being productive, like going from 10 minutes to 40 minutes, like massively increases the amount of like productive time you can actually have. Going from like a 50-year career, because you live to 80, to living to 200, you might get like 150-year career. You might have 3x the amount of productive time to actually like pursue like the research you're trying to do and the science you're trying to do.
And it's a great analogy. It's a great analogy too, because a session length of 10 minutes versus 40 minutes versus 10 minutes is not only 4 times longer, but you have way more context because there's deeper like flow in that. So it's way more productive than 4x more.
Yeah.
Same way as like if you live twice as long, it's not just like, 160 instead of 80. It's like, wow, like those are 80 extra years with all the context of that you previously had.
And with none of the like intellectual degeneration that aging does create as well. So you'll have the sort of mind of a 20 whatever year old, wherever that your mental acuity peaks, and all the knowledge of an 80-year-old, and then you've got 80 more years to attack the problems that you want to attack with the incredible combination that is, like, a lifetime's worth of knowledge and the brain of a 25-year-old. 26. I'm 26, so let's go with 26 is where everything peaks.
Yeah.
Actually, that means everything's downhill from here. Fuck, no.
Yeah, shit. Yo, we got to figure that shit ASAP. With people like David Sinclair doing longevity research, it's looking that it could be possible to even reverse age. So who knows?
Yeah,
I might get there.
I'm personally of the opinion that the laws of physics are the only limits on what we are going to be able to do as a civilization over the next hundreds of years or thousands of years. And the laws of physics, don't say that you can't basically de-age cells. Like ultimately cells are just collections of molecules and atoms, and if you can do chemical reactions which changes molecules and atoms back to what they were before, that cell will be functionally the same.
Yes.
And so will be de-aged, and it should all work out fine. It's a long road to get there. Biology just fucking blows my mind with how complicated it is. Every time I read something, I'm like, how many fucking different things do we need to know to understand the human body? Oh my god!
Well, there's a whole universe inside
us. So
it's pretty crazy.
Yeah,
pretty crazy.
I think AI is going to actually be incredibly useful there, because I don't think any human can really grok the full complexity of the human body. It's too much. Whereas if you have a simulation of the human body, or like an AI that is 10x smarter than we are, maybe they've got a shot.
Because they can also understand the whole context instead of a very specialized area.
Exactly.
Yeah. I lied. I want 2 very quick rapid fire questions.
Yeah, sure.
One, are we living in a simulation?
I think there's no way to answer that from inside the simulation. So if we are, who knows?
Okay, fair enough. I like that. And then let's say we were to fast forward to a time in the future where we have an all-knowing AI. They know everything about you, about the world, What question would you ask this AI?
How can we make humans live forever? I do think I think it'll be a long answer. Hopefully, a few 100-page PDF, maybe.
Yeah, or
maybe a whole series of research papers.
Yeah, or maybe the AI will just say 42 or something.
Yeah.
Who knows?
42.
But cool, Mike. Thank you for. I love the breadth and depth of your vision. Firstly, that was beautifully crafted. Let's go longevity to be able to manifest that. But thank you for your time. It was great to chat. And where can people follow along your journey with Magicflow and with your very interesting and curious mind?
Yeah, so Magicflow is magicflow.com, Magicflow HQ on Twitter, and I am Michael Jelly. So I'm Michael Jelly on almost every platform. So you can follow me there, and come join the journey, and
Yeah, join the journey. Cool. This was a hell of a flow, and it was quite magical indeed. So thank you for your time. Thank you all for listening. And as always, be infinite, my friends.